The last thing I expected to find while clearing out my wife's childhood home was her detailed plan to murder me, dated for next Thursday. It was nestled between the brittle, yellowed pages of her old copy of Wuthering Heights, a book she'd always said was too painful to reread. The paper was different, crisp, modern, a stark white against the novel's decaying cream pages. The handwriting was unmistakably Alara's, that elegant, looping script I'd seen 1,000 times on grocery lists and love notes left on the fridge. But these were not words of love. They were words of cold, calculated finality. Phase 4, 7, 30 p.m. Administer second dose with his evening whiskey. He prefers the Macallan 18. Ensure he drinks it all. The symptoms will mimic a severe cardiac event. Call ambulance at 8:15 p.m. Be crying. A list. A schedule. A murder weapon. A performance. The world didn't so much tilt as it simply dissolved. The dusty, sunlit air of the attic, thick with the ghosts of Alara's past, solidified in my lungs. I couldn't breathe. The sounds of her and her mother, sorting through china downstairs, became a distant, muffled hum, like listening to life from the bottom of a well. Next Thursday. That was our anniversary. 17 years. My hand began to tremble, the paper rattling like a leaf in a storm. I read it again, and then a third time, my eyes snagging on horrifying details. She had notes on my allergies, the specific brand of sedative she'd acquired that would interact fatally with my heart medication, the exact timeline of symptoms. It was flawless, clinical, the work of a stranger. This was my Alara, the woman who cried during dog food commercials, who planted a butterfly garden because she couldn't bear the thought of a world with less beauty in it, who kissed the scar on my shoulder every morning, a relic from the car accident 2 years ago, the accident she'd pulled me from, her own hands bleeding as she unbuckled my seatbelt, her voice, the only thing tethering me to consciousness. I had loved her since I was 19 years old. She was the single constant, the unwavering truth of my entire adult life. We had built this life together, brick by brick, dream by dream. The struggle with my business, the slow climb to stability, the quiet grief of a child we could never conceive. We had weathered it all, hand in hand. Or so I had believed. Now, holding this piece of paper, I felt the foundation of my entire existence crack and crumble into dust. Who was this woman? And why did she want me dead? A floorboard creaked downstairs. Her laugh floated up through the attic hatch, light and melodic, a sound that had always been my personal symphony. Now it sounded like a knife being sharpened. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through my shock. I couldn't let her know. I fumbled with the book, my fingers numb and clumsy. I slid the page back into its deadly hiding place and shoved the novel into a box marked "Donate." I had to act normal. I had to breathe, to smile, to look into the eyes of the woman I adored and pretend I hadn't just seen my own death sentence in her hand. I descended the ladder on unsteady legs. Alara stood at the bottom, her face smudged with a little dust, her blonde hair tied up in a messy bun. She looked so beautiful, it was a physical ache. She smiled, a genuine, crinkly-eyed smile that had always felt like coming home. "Find any treasures up there, my love?" she asked, wiping her hands on her jeans. My mouth was Sahara dry. "Just old books and magazines," I managed to croak out. "Nothing important." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her until the truth fell out. Why? For God's sake, why? But the clinical precision on that page warned me against it. That was not the plan of someone acting in passionate rage. That was the plan of someone who had thought about it meticulously for a very long time. If I confronted her, she would simply adapt. The outcome would be the same, only messier. I had to know why. The drive home was a special kind of torture. She chatted about her mother, about a vase they'd found, about what to have for dinner. I nodded and grunted in all the right places, a automaton pretending to be a man. My mind was screaming, tearing through every memory, every conversation, every glance, searching for a crack I had missed. Was it another man? The thought was a poison dart. I looked at her hands on the steering wheel. Her left, her wedding ring, a simple platinum band I'd saved for a year to buy, gleamed under the afternoon sun. Had another man's touch replaced mine? Had whispers and promises in another bed spawned this horrific plan? Was it money? My tech consulting firm had finally, after a decade of struggle, landed a massive, multi-year contract. Our financial worries were over. We were on the cusp of true security, even wealth. Was I worth more to her dead than alive? A life insurance policy I'd taken out years ago, when the business was riskier, flashed in my mind. It was substantial. Had she been waiting for this stability, for the payout to be worth the gamble? Or was it something else? Something darker, deeper, that I couldn't even fathom? For the next 3 days, I moved through my life like a ghost haunting my own body. I went to work, I held meetings, I came home, I kissed my wife. I tasted the coffee she made me every morning. Now terrified, it was the first dose of whatever poison she'd acquired. I watched her, every movement, every flicker of expression, searching for the monster behind the mask. And I saw nothing. Absolutely nothing. She was the same Alara. She fretted over a deadline for her freelance graphic design work. She laughed at a stupid meme on her phone and showed it to me. She curled into my side on the couch as we watched a movie, her head on my chest, right over the heart she planned to stop. The dissonance was driving me insane. It was like living in two parallel realities. In one, I was a man deeply loved. In the other, I was a walking corpse, my wife, my executioner. I became a spy in my own home. I checked our bank accounts, no unusual withdrawals, no payments to suspicious entities. I went through her email, her social media, her text messages on the rare occasions she left her phone unlocked. There was no secret lover, no incriminating messages. There was only me, our friends, her mother, her book club, a life of utter normalcy. The lack of evidence was its own form of proof. She was too careful, too smart. The woman who could plan a murder this perfectly would never be sloppy enough to leave a digital trail. My paranoia began to curdle into a cold, focused rage. This woman, this stranger in my wife's skin, thought she could erase me. She thought I was a fool, a pawn to be neatly and quietly removed from the board. She had looked into my eyes every day and lied. She had held me every night and plotted. I couldn't go to the police. What was my evidence? A single unsigned note in a book? They'd dismiss me. And if they didn't, if they questioned her, it would only warn her. She would go deeper underground, and her next plan would be even more untraceable. No. This was between her and me. I had to turn her own weapon against her. I had to understand. And then, I had to act. The plan began to form in my mind, a dark, mirrored reflection of her own. I would play my part, the unsuspecting husband. I would drink the whiskey she offered, but I wouldn't swallow it. I would feign the symptoms. I would give the performance of my life, and in doing so, I would expose hers. I started researching. I studied the symptoms of cardiac events, of the specific drug interaction she'd noted. I practiced convulsing in the bathroom mirror, practicing the gasp, the clutch at my chest, the slackening of my facial muscles. I became an actor preparing for the role of his death. The day before our anniversary, the day before my scheduled murder, I came home early. Ilara was in her studio, a sunroom at the back of the house. I stood in the doorway, watching her. She was humming, absorbed in her work, painting a watercolor of the oak tree in our backyard. The afternoon light caught the delicate gold chain around her neck, a necklace I'd given her for her 40th birthday. She looked up and saw me. Her smile was immediate, warm. "Daniel, you're home early." A shadow of concern crossed her face. "Is everything okay? You look tired." "I'm tired of pretending I don't know you're going to kill me tomorrow," I thought. I forced a smile. Just a slow day. Thought I'd come home to my beautiful wife. I walked over and kissed the top of her head. She smelled of acrylic paint and her jasmine shampoo. The familiarity of it was a physical blow. This was the last day I would believe in this version of her. The last day of our marriage, even if she didn't know it yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her, listening to her steady, even breathing, and I grieved. I grieved for us, for the two kids who had fallen in love in a college library, for the years of shared jokes and quiet comforts, for the future we would never have. It was all a lie, a beautiful, intricately painted lie, and the canvas was about to be ripped apart. Our anniversary dawned bright and clear, a mockingly beautiful day. Ilara was radiant, buzzing with a nervous energy I now recognized not as excitement for our celebration, but as anticipation for the finale of her plan. She made me pancakes for breakfast. "A special treat," she said, kissing my cheek. I ate them, every bite tasting like ash. She gave me a gift, a beautiful, expensive watch. "For all the time you've given me," she said, her eyes shimmering. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. I gave her my gift, a weekend getaway to a secluded cabin in the mountains. I'd booked it weeks ago, a surprise. Her face fell for a fraction of a second, a micro-expression of panic before she plastered on a dazzling smile. "It's perfect. Oh, Daniel, I can't wait." She was thinking about how to cancel it, now that I wouldn't be around to go. The day stretched on, an excruciating countdown. 7:30 p.m. The whiskey. My Macallan 18. It sat on the sidebar in the living room, a crystal decanter gleaming in the evening light. As the clock ticked towards the hour, a strange calm settled over me. The fear and the grief were still there, but they were muted, buried under a layer of razor-sharp focus. This was it. At 7:25 p.m., Ilara stood up. "I'll get us a drink to celebrate," she said, her voice a little too high. She walked to the sidebar, her movements precise. I watched her pour 2 generous glasses. She had her back to me for a moment. I saw her shoulders tense. A slight, almost imperceptible movement as she palmed something from her pocket and tipped it into one of the glasses. She swirled it, the amber liquid catching the light. She turned, a glass in each hand. The one in her right hand was mine. She walked towards me, a tragic heroine in a play only she was directing. Her smile was tender, her eyes held a sheen of tears. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. "To 17 years, she said, her voice thick with emotion. "To us." I took the glass from her. Our fingers brushed. Her skin was ice cold. "To us," I echoed, my voice steady. I brought the glass to my lips. The rich, peaty scent of the whiskey filled my nostrils. I took a small sip, letting it wash over my tongue. I didn't taste anything unusual, but I felt her eyes on me, watching, waiting for me to take a deeper drink. I pretended to cough, turning away from her as I set the glass down on the side table. "Went down the wrong way," I rasped. Her face was a mask of concerned encouragement. "Oh, careful, my love. Take another sip. It'll help." I nodded, feigning a recovered breath. I picked up the glass again. This was it. I raised it to my lips, but instead of drinking, I let my eyes go wide. I made a small, choked sound in the back of my throat. I clutched at my chest. The glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor, whiskey splashing like blood. "Daniel?" Her voice was sharp, not concerned, assessing. I staggered forward, gasping for air. I collapsed onto the rug, my body convulsing exactly as I'd practiced. I let my eyes roll back in my head, my mouth slack. I focused on making my breathing shallow, ragged. "Daniel! Oh my God, Daniel!" Her cries were perfect. The sheer, unadulterated terror in her voice was a masterpiece of deception. If I didn't know better, I would have believed it. I heard her fumble for her phone. Her voice, now hysterical, sobbing, spoke to the 911 operator. "My husband, he just collapsed. He's not breathing. Please hurry." She dropped to her knees beside me. She took my hand. Her tears fell on my face. They felt real. "Hold on, Daniel. Please hold on," she sobbed, her body racked with tremors. "I love you. I love you so much. Please don't leave me." The words were a violation, a desecration. I had to fight with every fiber of my being to stay limp, to not recoil from her touch. In the distance, the glorious sound of sirens began to wail. They grew closer, piercing the quiet of our street. Red and blue lights strobed through our front window. The banging on the door. "Paramedics!" Ilara scrambled to her feet and let them in. I remained still, playing dead. I felt hands on me, a light being shone into my eyes. "Sir, can you hear me?" I didn't respond. I was loaded onto a gurney, rushed into the ambulance. Ilara climbed in after me, her sobs echoing in the small, sterile space. One of the EMTs was trying to console her. "We've got him, ma'am. Just hang in there." The hospital was a blur of controlled chaos. I was wheeled into the ER, doctors and nurses swarming around me. I heard snippets of their jargon, their voices tight and professional. I felt a needle go into my arm, an IV. Through slitted eyes, I saw Ilara in the hallway, talking to a doctor. She was clutching her arms around herself, her face pale and ravaged by tears. She was the picture of a devastated wife. This was the moment. This was where her plan was supposed to culminate. The tragic, sudden death of a husband with a known heart condition. A grieving, blameless widow. A nurse leaned over me. Sir, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand." I squeezed. Her eyes widened in surprise. She looked towards the doctor, then back at me. I opened my eyes fully. "I'm fine," I whispered, my voice hoarse from the fake gasping. "I need to speak to the police. Now." The nurse looked stunned, but years of training took over. She nodded sharply and hurried out. The next few minutes were a whirlwind. The doctor came in, perplexed. I insisted I was lucid. I explained, in a low, urgent voice, that I believed I had been poisoned. I mentioned the whiskey. I mentioned my wife's behavior. The doctor's expression shifted from confusion to grave seriousness. He left the room. I saw two police officers arrive and speak with him in hushed tones outside the curtain. Ilara was brought into a different room. I could imagine her confusion, her growing panic as the script she had written so carefully began to unravel. An hour later, a detective, a woman with a kind, tired face, came to speak to me. I told her everything. The note, the plan, the performance. I gave her permission to search our house, to test the contents of the decanter, to look for the book in the donate box. I signed the forms. I felt a cold, hollow certainty. It was done. They kept me overnight for observation. The next morning the detective returned. Her expression was grim. "We found the note, Mr. Vance, exactly where you said it would be. And we found the bottle of phenobarbital tucked inside a box of tampons in the back of your wife's bathroom cabinet. The lab is testing the whiskey now, but—" She trailed off. "But it's enough." I finished for her. "It's enough to hold her. She's being charged with attempted murder." The word attempted hung in the air. She hadn't succeeded. I had won. I had outmaneuvered her. So why did I feel like I had been carved out with a spoon? "Can I see her?" I asked, the question surprising even me. The detective looked hesitant. "I'm not sure that's advisable, Mr. Vance. Please, I need to understand." After a long moment, she nodded. "I'll be right outside." They brought Ilara into a private consultation room. She was wearing a standard-issue jumpsuit. Her face was bare and pale, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. The performance was over. The mask was off. She looked at me not with love or hate or even fear. She looked at me with a hollow, devastating emptiness. We sat across from each other, the table between us a chasm. "Why, Ilara?" My voice was a broken thing. "For God's sake, why?" She was silent for a long time, just staring at her hands, cuffed in front of her on the table. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat, devoid of all the music I had loved for 17 years. "The accident," she said. I blinked. "The accident? What about it? You saved me." A bitter, ugly little smile touched her lips. "Did I?" The room felt suddenly colder. "What are you talking about?" She looked up, and for the first time, her eyes met mine. They were full of a truth so dark it made my blood run cold. "You were drunk, Daniel. You swerved into oncoming traffic. That truck, it was a miracle we weren't all killed. You were arguing with me. You took your eyes off the road because you were so angry. A memory, fragmented and hazy, pushed at the edges of my mind. A raised voice, a slammed hand on the dashboard, the blare of a horn. "No," I whispered. I don't remember that." "Of course you don't," she said, her voice dripping with a venom I never knew she possessed. "The concussion, the trauma, it was a gift. You gotta forget. I had to remember every single day. The sound of the impact, the smell of the airbags, the sight of you bleeding and broken, and all I could think was, you did this." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "All this time, you blamed me? Blame?" She let out a short, harsh laugh. "It wasn't blame, Daniel. It was knowledge. It was certainty. You had a temper. You were reckless. You almost killed us. And you never even knew. You got to be the hero who survived. I was the brave wife who saved you. We built a life on a lie I had to keep telling every time I looked at you." She leaned forward, her eyes burning with a cold fire. "And then your business took off. You became happy, content. You started talking about retiring, about traveling the world, and I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't spend the next 30 years trapped in a car with a man who had almost murdered me and didn't even remember. I couldn't pretend to love you anymore. The lie was suffocating me. She sat back, the fire dying out, leaving only ashes. The life insurance was a way out. For me, freedom from you. Freedom from the memory of that night. It wasn't about the money. It was about silence. Your permanent, final silence. The truth landed like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. It wasn't a lover. It wasn't greed. It was resentment, festering for 2 years in the dark, fed by a memory I didn't have and a guilt I never knew I should carry. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd been living in a prison of my making, and murder was her only key. The detective came back in. It was time to go. I stood up, my legs weak. I looked at the woman I had loved for half my life, the stranger I had married. "I'm sorry," I said. The words were inadequate, meaningless, but they were all I had. Alara didn't look at me. She just stared at the wall, already miles away, lost in the silence she had craved. I walked out of the room, out of the hospital, into a world that had been fundamentally altered. The sun was too bright. The sounds were too loud. I was free. I was alive. I had exposed the plot and saved myself. But as I stood there on the steps of the hospital, I knew with a chilling certainty that I had lost everything long before I found that note in the attic. The foundation of our life had been rotten long before the walls came down. The betrayal wasn't in the plan to kill me. The betrayal was in the secret she kept, the hatred she nurtured while sharing my bed, the devastating truth she let me forget while she remembered every damn day. I had outlived her plot, but I could never outrun the reason for it. The ghost of the man I didn't remember being had killed my wife long before she decided to kill me, and we were both left with the silence.